Hello everyone, my name is Steve Barrett. I'm the editorial director of PR Week, and I'm delighted to bring you another edition of Coffee Break. And we are here with Joseph Cephas, who's SVP at Novità PR, and he's in Brooklyn, and so am I. So Joseph, welcome to the show. Good to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me, Steve.
Yeah, you're down a bit further downtown, a bit nearer the bridge, and you said you've got some folks working outside your building, so the viewers might get someone climbing past your window. Don't be alarmed if that happens.
The timing is impeccable every time.
Absolutely. Yeah, the building noise always starts when we start recording. So tell me a little bit about Novità PR and there. You've been there since March, but it's a specialist agency and you've got a number of specialisms, but design and architecture is one of them, and you're very involved in that because you used to work for the Society of Interior Designers, I think, in a comms role. So talk us through that.
Sure. Yes, I used to work for American Society of Interior Designers, and it was an association based in Washington, D.C. I was there for about 4 years as their vice president of communications and brand experience, and I actually was a client of Novità with them, as our PR agency. And they specialize in architecture and design, but really have a diverse array of clients. But that's really their specialty. So I decided to make the move to New York City and join the team, and yeah, it was a very smooth transition since I was already very familiar with the industry. The industry it's a lot different than what people think of it. You know, when people think of interior design, oftentimes they think more basic of thinking of decorating. But interior design really is doing the interiors of airports, restaurants, hotels, any space that you walk in. An interior designer has touched it and has built it based on you, and it really affects the human experience. It's everything from access to natural light to air quality, things like that. And then architecture, people are pretty familiar with architects as well. So and what really they do for the built environment.
Yeah, well, we can talk a bit about that. But first of all, that was an interesting time to move, wasn't it? Around March time, you're moving cities, you're moving into a new job, and then the whole COVID thing starts up. How was that? What was that experience like?
Yeah, it was very interesting. I moved to New York in December, and I actually moved and I took a few months off just to relax, get my bearings. I was traveling a ton with my role at ASID, and was really just working nonstop for about the last 2 years I was there. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a little bit of time off. And then I decided to join the team of Novità right at the beginning of March. And our international office is actually based in Milan. And so they were getting hit as I was joining the office. So they kind of predicted what was coming because they had firsthand experience of what's going on in Italy. And yeah, so when I joined on, it was a very interesting time, but you know, some of our clients had pulled back a little bit, went to halftime, as I'm sure a lot of the industry has gone through. But we've done okay because we've seen it coming. We saw it coming kind of early, and some of our clients have actually started to pick up a little bit. And even our clients that have going to halftime have actually started to go back to full time and change their contracts a bit in the recent weeks. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, and you talk about interior design. I guess the offices we go back to and the buildings we go back to are going to look kind of different, aren't they, to what they did before? And design is part of that. So design is going to be fundamentally different, I suspect, for offices. What are you thinking about that, and what things do you expect to see in those environments when we go back?
Yeah, the role of designers are going to be critical during this time. And they already were very important. We've seen workplaces change in the past 5 to 10 years. A lot of it is that Silicon Valley influence of going more to an open office plan, more hotel-like seating where you don't have an assigned seat. So we've seen a lot of things like that happen in recent years. And I think that's going to change a bit. The shared spaces are going to be a little bit different. The way that the spacing between desks, and the way that even conference rooms are designed. But then there's design solutions for things like elevators. Those are going to have some design solutions. Hotels are going to have design solutions where it's just limiting the interaction and the actual face-to-face contact and how close everyone is really going to shift, and design is going to play a huge role in that.
Yeah, I think the Haymarket, which is PR Week's parent company, elevators are notorious at the best of times. So when we go back, I think I'm going to be going up 10 flights of stairs. So that's either going to kill me after 3 or 4 weeks in lockdown, eating and drinking too much and not exercising. But anyway, we'll see. We need some interior design help on that for sure. You've also been doing some sessions on diversity in the design world. And I know you did a session, we're talking the Monday after Juneteenth. I know you did a session then, and you did a virtual panel as well. Talk us through those sessions and also about the issues that you see regarding diversity in the design industry.
Absolutely, yes. So about 3 weeks ago, I had finally made the decision to start to join the marches here in Brooklyn and start protesting. It was a very tough decision we see all the protests going on, but there's still a pandemic. COVID is still a very real thing. And I was like, you know what? A lot of my ancestors, they made sacrifices as well. And I need to get out there on the front lines and start protesting the atrocities that are going on right now and have been going on for generations in this country. So I was out marching, and it actually dawned on me that architecture and design, the industry, it's even worse than most industries. I've gone to events where there's been 600 people and been the only person of color at the event. And it feels like there's a spotlight on you, and people have spoken to me as if I'm the only Black person that they will see that day. Like I represented all Black people, and everything that I said was supposed to represent that. So it was like, there needs to be change. So I put together a panel in about 24 hours of people, of very renowned people in the design community. One is an educator. One is more so on the client side, but she used to be an architect, but then she switched over to more so being on the real estate side. And one started her own nonprofit that actually gets architecture and design in front of young people of color. So we put together this panel, and we had a very frank conversation. We really talked about the workplace and architecture and design, the issues that are happening there, and the lack of diversity, and why that is the case. And we were very upfront. We said that we knew we might hurt some people's feelings, but that's the only way we're going to change and grow. And then we had a follow-up to it this past Friday on Juneteenth. And we did that one more so as like a town hall where we had Q&A for about the last hour of the session and just invited people in to ask questions. And I believe all but one were from white people asking very, very good questions. And we think that we made a difference, and we think that we had a very captive audience. The first one, we had about 500 people attend, and then about 1,300 people have gone back and watched the video on Facebook. So the turnout's been very good.
That's great. I mean, is it that Black and people of color are not getting the opportunities? They don't see it as a career option, or is it, what are the main things that need to change? It's great that people are listening, and that's the first part of this. But I think what the last few weeks has shown us all is it's time for action, isn't it? And things have got to change, and that's going to require big business changes and societal changes. What's your take on that?
Yeah, and I would say it's one of those. It's all of the above. It's all of the similar things that are facing all firms and all corporations throughout America, where there's just systemic racism that is impacting hiring practices within the industry. But then really, even if you go into the education of architecture and design, you don't see any people of color, and there are people of color that have been, it's just like all history, like it's been kind of rewritten, and people of color are just not there. And then architecture and design, when you really look at it, it has contributed to some of the societal issues. You have things like housing practices and redlining and things like that have really caused cities to remain pretty segregated. And those have played a significant role in it. So if that's kind of how you see the industry, then that's not really an industry that you go into. And there's very few people, not just of color, but within management positions. And that always hurts the next generation, because you don't see people in leadership roles that look like you. So then that's not really a career that you go into. So it's one of those things where if you fix that problem now and you get a few more people in leadership, the next generation will follow just based on seeing people in those positions that look like them.
Now, that's a good segue into the PR industry, because PR Week, we did a big survey on Friday looking at diversity in PR agencies. And frankly, it wasn't a great story there either, despite the fact that you would think PR is possibly a more progressive industry maybe than the design sector. What's your experience been as a Black professional working in different parts of the PR industry? And what did you think of that, the trends that were found there, and especially the leadership point? It seemed the same in PR, that there aren't good role models. There still aren't, the C-suites at PR agents especially are still quite white. That really hasn't been substantial change over the last 5 to 10 years.
Yes, and it was not surprising. It was eye-opening, but not surprising. You know, it was one of those things where I'm so happy it was done, because it can, anything that's data-based and data-driven, you know, it takes out that circumstantial evidence where you're like, okay, we rarely see it, but you're like, no, there's true numbers behind it. So that is step one. That is very good. Now it's like, how do we fix that problem? But yes, I've experienced that. It's very rare that I see people of color at any events that I go to within the industry. I was in-house a lot while I was in DC. I was working for a lot of associations. But as I went to different PR events within DC, and on a national level, you just don't see people of color. And, you know, and there's so many times where you can see a message, you can see a note, you see things come out, and you know that there was not representation in that room. And that is much needed. You know, I hope that this moment and this time goes beyond creating tokenism, and you're just like, you know what, we're just hiring people of color and Black people within the diversity and inclusion roles. No, it needs to be a systemic change where we are subject matter experts in many different roles. You know, it's just like that. In my role, I'm senior vice president, and I touch many different clients within our organization, and it's, you know, I'm a person of color, so it's more so that it's getting in those positions and not just being seen as a diversity expert.
Yeah, and having real P&L responsibility and proper business responsibility. D&I is important, but that's not ticking that box is not enough, is it, these days?
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. That is a terrific point. I mean, and that representation is going to change so many different things. You know, you can feel when there's representation in a room, when a release goes out, when there's a response from a company, you can immediately tell that there was representation within that room when that decision or that wording came out.
Yeah, and it's good business practice as well, because modern America is a very diverse society, and there are many diverse consumers who've got great spending power, and they want to buy into brand activities that they believe in and they can buy into. What would your message be then to the leaders in the PR industry, especially in the PR agency sector, about making real change?
One of the first things is make actionable goals. You have to follow up the messages with action. I was very, very impressed with a lot of the messages that came out in response to the recent weeks. And, you know, I say that's the bare minimum. It's just like the actual phrase Black Lives Matter is the bare minimum. Just to say Black Lives Matter, that is the minimum that we're trying to get here. The putting out a statement that was powerful, that used words that haven't been used in the past, like police brutality, actually naming names and using systemic racism. That is the step one. But now it's really make actionable goals where you're like, we're going to have a corporation that has representation of the actual makeup of this country. And that's key. And then understanding the issues that people of color have within the workplace. I mean, this is also an HR issue. There are things that affect Black people on a daily basis in the workplace that do not affect other groups. And recognizing that exists is key.
Yeah, that's great points there, Joseph. Just to finish, are there any, going back to design, are there any organizations that are leading the way there in making a more diverse society, either on the consultancy side or actually, you know, in construction or architecture?
Yeah. I mean, as a whole, like there are some organizations that are making they're making some real change. There's a national organization of minority architects that is doing great things. There's the Black Interior Designer Network that's doing really good things. But as far as some firms, some that are trying to make real change, or like Perkins and Will is a global architecture and design firm that they're really trying to make change. They have a very influential person in their position of diversity and inclusion, and they're not only trying to make change within their firm, but they're also making changes in the work that they do. So that is good as well. Is that understanding their impact of what they do on a daily basis? That's going to attract more people of color if they see that the work is actually making a difference. And
for sure. Well, listen, we wish you well in our career, but also in changing the design industry with people like you. I'm sure there's going to be change, and continued good luck with those efforts. Thanks for joining us on Coffee Break.
Thank you so much for having me.